Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. As you can see, I have with me Mr. Sree Iyer from P Guru's channel, and he's been thankfully a regular on Dev Talks, giving us an insight of what's happening within the US and how things are shaping up over there. Sir, first of all, hello and welcome to the show. And I wanted to talk to you about Prime Minister Modi's upcoming visit. There's a lot which is happening at the back end. There's positive, and of course, there's the negative, which is always creeping out. As I said, thank you for coming, sir.
Namaskar, thank you for inviting me and a huge welcome to all your followers. Yours is one of the most serious content that gets put on YouTube. Very, very valuable. In fact, I have now become habituated to listening to your conversations while I am biking. I do 1 hour biking, so it's just about right. So I'm very thankful to you for giving me the right amount of time and also food for thought. So great job
Thank you,
and
sir.
looking forward to talking to you about this topic.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, let's talk about the visit itself. There is, a lot of expectations which are coming out from both the sides. As a matter of fact, what are these expectations from India and the US?
Well, India is now getting serious about fighter planes and also trying to make their own ammunitions and arms within India. And this is now triggered a need by India for things that it perhaps cannot do itself. For example, even China doesn't have this. That is the aircraft engine. This is something that is special. There are only few companies that are manufacturing it across the whole world. And I think India is thinking that perhaps the General Electric, which might be able to give them these engines for them to put it in not only their aircraft, but maybe for some other countries also. A lot of things have happened here. I think US was concerned perhaps that India will use it for other things. So there is some boundaries being put around where these kinds of advanced technology such as engine technology can be used. And I'm also told that there is a bunch of other projects that will come once this kind of sees the light of day, because US is now very keen that it shares some of its technology like the way it used to do with other countries such as Taiwan and South Korea and Japan. Not like China was purely a manufacturing hub for US, but with these other countries it in fact shared a fair amount of technology also. So I think India is going to be the new big partner with US, and India needs to make sure all these projects that come from US, these are all multi-billion-dollar projects, and they can also lead to jobs for thousands of people. They need to make sure no red tape shows its ugly head in all these executions.
Absolutely, sir. That's would be the biggest expectation. Sir, the fight is obviously within the US is obviously between the US State Department and the Defense Department. Defense Department calls us a ally or a partner like never before, and the State Departments, of course, with its dirty tricks departments, keeps on fingering various different issues within India. How do you see this balance playing out in front of the upcoming visit?
Adi, sometimes actions speak louder than words. Austin Lloyd was the Secretary of Defense, who's the Defense Minister of the United States, was in India around the time India said that it's going to place its two aircraft carriers just outside the mouth of Karachi, just outside the maritime boundaries of Pakistan. You think they didn't tell them beforehand that they were going to do that? And US would have said, yes, go ahead and do it. The reason it is being done, in my opinion, Adi, I could be wrong, is that India is getting a little fed up with this thousand cuts policy of Pakistan. They have been trying to, first of all, flood Indian markets with fake currencies. Drugs have been going up, and all sorts of other trafficking has started now. And this is what I think India needs to really say. Look, you do one more thing, and you're not going to get anything in or out of your only harbor, which is Karachi.
So, as far as the narrative is concerned within the US, you cover it quite deeply in your channel, with the caste narrative and with the religious narrative, and there's a whole lot which gets done at the back end. But that's part of the game as far as the US State Department is concerned. They don't spare anybody, as a matter of fact. So we've seen articles coming out about Japan, about except the British, I guess. There are articles about everyone. How do you see this narrative shaping up going forward? Because both the countries are going to go into a very tough election year, and both are simultaneously at the same time. Very, very important elections.
A lot of things are happening in the background that perhaps you will not see in the form of news. India is very effectively countering a lot of these things. I don't know if you saw this or not. I had just put out a 5-minute video on the National Investigative Agency of India seeking people in the United Kingdom for the identity of the people who are trying to vandalize its High Commission building. And they said that your anonymity will be preserved. We just want to know who these people are. And this is because the Khalistani supporters perhaps don't know or ignorant or they don't care, but there are consequences that Indian High Commission building is actually property of India, and that Indian government can act against these people. If they can't act against them in UK, they may be able to locate their properties in India, and they may be able to confiscate for the damages. This is something that India had not done for a long time. It is starting to do that. You saw this bulldozer Raj in Yogi Adityanath's Uttar Pradesh. I think India is now saying, look, enough is enough. You've got enough freedom. We are going to now crack down. And I think it's a good step because they have become very violent lately.
Mm. That's the thing. So these groups are getting slow and steady organized, and even sometimes backed by certain entities abroad.
Oh yeah,
We have,
ISI. These
yeah,
guys,
of course.
ISI has become totally self-reliant now. They don't need any money from the Pakistani army. So what happens then? They don't listen to anyone. They probably have their own industrial sector, which is like East India Complex, and there's also an army establishment sector. So we don't know how that has happened. But look at this guy, Nadeem Anjum. Do you ever see him say a word in the press? Do we even see where he is? He seems to be always operating in the shadows. He's busy.
Well, sir, it's the establishment more than anything else. It's the setup that kind of works rather than that one person. We know that as well. But the interesting thing that you've brought out is the ISI backed organizations and ISI funded organizations which are connected to various, again, philanthropists and industrialists around the world that are creating some amount of chaos. Uh, the main thing is we also see these narratives building up within India, but we also see them being countered really fast. How do you see that development happening? Because previously, these narratives used to last on for about 2 3 weeks. There used to be a huge tamasha. Today, the length and breadth of that narrative is about a day or two max. Why?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. But it still is a bit late, in my opinion. I'll tell you why. The float that was done in Brampton, Canada,
Yeah.
that is a suburb of Toronto, that needed to have been countered like within hours. It took 2 or 3 days before the
Yeah.
MEA issued a very strong statement. They should have done it right away. It doesn't matter. You don't disrespect somebody else's prime minister's assassination this way. Khalistanis went too far. That had to be told. That Jagmeet Singh is a rascal, I'm telling you.
Hmm.
He has completely come through the Khalistani sympathizers rank in Canada. He is now essentially holding the Trudeau government hostage, and they need to get something out. They need to figure out a way out of that. That is the one
Mm.
thing that is really driving Canada to disaster, in my opinion. This is not good for them. The 90% moderate Sikhs in Canada are really taking it on the chin because I'm hearing some real horror stories.
Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, yes, and especially Canada has become a hub center for all these kind of
Yes,
activities.
yes.
And it was previously the UK, but I think they've kind of roped it in a little bit. Australia, there are wild incidents here and there, but Canada seems to be bang
Uh,
in the open.
Adi, in the United States, after they tried to set fire to the consulate building in San Francisco, the US immediately got into action. They listened to the people, they came and listened to us, they listened to the day to day problems on the ground, finding out how Khalistanis were harassing Hindus, how they were naming, saying that we are going to come after you, Brahmin girls. What nonsense they said. And all that within 6 weeks, completely mopped up, everybody thrown into prison. There's not a peep in US today. And recently there was a big festival in the biggest Sikh Gurudwara, and I saw with my own eyes the Gurudwara president telling the Khalistani guy where he can take the Khalistani flag and put.
Interesting development. So, the money part of it, and that's something which is very, very concerning to me. That there is, of course, the amount of money that gets funded into these narratives. Uh, of course, there are multiple detractors within India who try and kind of take advantage of that. Uh, and as the visit comes close, which is basically, I mean, to my mind, correct me if I'm wrong, very, very critical politically, personally, and for nationally for both the countries. I mean, US would also want to showcase something. India is a big swing state today, so they just can't afford to kind of push them away. How do you see this narrative going forward? Because the attacks are going to just intensify. You're going to have this, you're going to have the quad G20, this that whole lot of stuff is going to come through, and then the elections. So
Well,
it's a dangerous time, sir.
yes, the toolkits are being brought out. You're going to see this thing erupt left, right, center. In fact, people say even Manipur was a toolkit in execution.
Yeah, well,
But the response time is getting faster. People are waking up. They're alert. They're able to snuff some of these things that are coming out even before they raise their ugly head. It's like there is a game that we play in all these children parks, theme park kind of stuff. It's called whack-a-mole. What it
mhm.
is they have these holes, and in these holes, the alligator will stick its head up. Chuk, chuk,
You
chuk,
gotta
chuk,
hate it.
chuk, chuk. You are given a hammer and you have to whack it. Every time you whack it, you get a point. So this is exactly what I think is going to happen. Whack, 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 whack. That's what is going to happen. And I think you will start seeing this die down a bit because it's a very small set of people, idealistic rascals who have no, I mean, some of them are charitrahin, in my opinion, traitors in their thought, born in India and now wishing ill for the country. This is the worst thing you can do. And these are people with very sick mindsets. That's all I
Mhm.
can tell. And once three or four people are sent to jail for their misdemeanors, trust me, Adi, these things will just die down in the same way they came up. I think one of the biggest problems you'll start seeing is Equality Labs is going to start facing the heat from many people who swallowed its narrative hook, line, and sinker, and now they are seeing that this case is being thrown out of courts. Cisco is still not settled. The
Mhm.
CRD, Civil Rights Department of California State, is trying to somehow eke out a win out of this case, and Cisco is not settling. Cisco's employees have told Cisco, you have tarnished our name for good. We are not fired. We are not in that lawsuit. But everywhere we go from this point forward, our futures are going to be always, oh, you were a Cisco guy. You discriminated. Because these people are saying we have been called guilty even before we have had a trial. So Cisco is having its own problems. So we'll just wait and see how this thing plays
That was
out.
a that was quite a watershed, as a matter of fact, sir. It
Yeah.
actually brought the entire, you know what, in front of the world. I mean, it was otherwise this was a very hush hush thing. In India,
Yeah,
it was
yeah, yeah.
spoken about, but abroad, it wasn't the case. Today, a lot of people abroad are saying, "Yeah, what was
Yes.
that?" But sir, there is always this group of these neocons, neoliberals, which are pushing this wokist agenda, and any nationalism that is displayed by any country, of course, doesn't suit them. Uh, the whole globalist agenda is, I mean, I find it to be very Marxist. Why they fought the communists, now they want to be them. Uh, how do you see them? Because India is going to get even more nationalist going forward. Uh, both are the situation is going to call for that unity within the country.
Adi, many people see President Biden as one of the most nationalistic presidents you have ever seen in the history of United States. One of the most. You know why? Because he has called back every semiconductor manufacturing company employee back from China. No exceptions. And there were some people who are having dual citizenships, dual minds, and all that. He said, you have 1 month to make up your mind. If you don't come back within a month, the door closes. We will automatically rescind your citizenship, your green card, your whatever. So he has been very, very, very forthright in this. That's why
Hard.
I'm saying that US is also seen now as being very nationalistic. If you are nationalistic, you can't accuse somebody else of being nationalistic. See, this nationalistic word got misused or abused because of
Yeah.
Nazis.
Mhm.
Okay, nothing else. Why? What is wrong in having nationalistic pride? I am proud of being an American. I'm also proud of being an Indian. I'm an overseas citizen of India. I can't vote. I'm sure in the near future that will change and I can vote in both places. US doesn't mind people having multiple citizenships. So my point I'm trying to say is this is going to change, and I think people will say, "Oh, nationalism is actually a virtue." US will turn on a dime, man. I mean, you never
Mm.
know.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, what about your takeaway as to what would it be that Mr. Modi would like to bring back from the US? What do you think is the biggest thing that he would like to announce? TOT we've spoken about. I mean, it's just not going to be TOT. We know that there's something else which is also in the pipeline. We don't know what it is. What do you think is going to be the biggest takeaway for him to bring it back to the country?
One of the things that might happen, and this is not something that is written yet and signed, is some sort of a defense agreement whereby in Quad, India will start engaging even more than what it has already been doing. For example, access to some latest cyber technology so that they can put some of those things in their own, missiles and things like that. We don't know how smart India's missiles are. BrahMos, for example. BrahMos is essentially Moscow and Brahmaputra, the two rivers. That's what it was. It was a joint Russia research project. At what point India, forked away from Russia and has done its own development? What is the core technology there? What kind of intelligence it has? So some of those things may be still an unknown. I would not be surprised if US says, okay, for your needs, you might want to have this, like Stingers and other technology that India might be also allowed to develop. Lockheed Martin, for example, there has been talk about some other things that Lockheed Martin would like to do in India because they can find India as a lower cost supplier. At the
Yeah.
same time, they may feel secure about the fact that their technology won't get stolen.
My last question to you would be on the same line, sir, because at the end of it, one of the biggest things that I would find the US should realize that India can become one of their biggest defense manufacturers uh, to sort out India's own needs and, of course, the needs of their partners and allies within the region and beyond. As you said, the low cost this thing. So, is there a realization? Is there any writings coming out in that factor? Any
Uh,
think tanks talking about this line or something like that?
Adi, India proved it by launching so many satellites.
Yep, exactly why
ISRO,
I'm.
yeah, ISRO has made a statement about what India can do because if you remember, the United States came and told ISRO, here we would like you to launch some of these satellites of ours.
Mhm.
It's more expensive for us. The US is dialing back some of these programs like NASA and many of the other things connected with space. And for whatever is left for maintenance as well as for other stuff, it can rely reliably on India to do that part for them. So India might end up being one of those, essential technology partners of United States. And US is talking about also having a NATO plus like agreement with India. That essentially means if China starts doing any misadventure, because there is a growing perception that China is also arming Pakistan now. Pakistan has nothing. So they have nothing to lose. So China can give any arms, and then they'll say, well, we'll come in and tell you how to use it. Essentially, they will start short of pulling the trigger, they'll do everything else. And then they say, okay, now it's all set up, now you pull the trigger. So if
Hmm.
something like that were to happen, India would need somebody of the might of US to immediately come in with arms and ammunition to counter some of these things. So it will be a two-sided, along the LOC, along the LAC, you might have conflicts flaring up, and in such an eventuality India might need to rely on US very quickly, like not like Ukraine where the US kept giving them 2 3 levels of technology behind,
Piecemeal, yeah.
and suddenly they saw that Ukraine was beginning to absorb and engage. Then they started giving the more advanced equipment. Still it is work in progress. With India, I think they can safely go give this is exactly what you need to counter it. Go, play with it. So something like that might happen. For that, you would see that some special crews from India might come and train with the United States forces in the US. When you see that, that's what you will know. That's when you will know that there is a much deeper agreement in place.
Exactly, and that's the main thing. I mean, Ukraine is a different story. I think it was a piecemeal sort of an operation. Neither side didn't want to kind of go into it very, very deeply. So I guess they were all "Chal lad rahe hain, ladte raho." It was more of a media
Right, right,
narrative
right, right, right.
more than
Right.
anything else. So, actually, I'll ask you a random if you don't mind, and 30 seconds just on that. The factor that you mentioned about the NATO Plus, and NATO Plus, of course, is not very well accepted within India. And I think that news was put out just to gauge the
Test
public
the waters.
reaction. Yeah, test the water sort of a thing. The name itself would not kind of sell in India, sir.
True,
and
true.
that's
So
something
what it will be is it will not be mentioned outside, but it will be in spirit. In letter, it won't be there, but it will be there. Just
yeah.
watch my, this is India has a
No, no,
very
no,
big border to
absolutely.
defend. 5,000 kilometers.
Mm.
If you add
Mm.
LOC with the LSC, it's a big border.
No,
So
no, no, you're
just
right, sir, because we are the only country in the world that has two nuclear rogue neighbors
yes,
as
yes,
enemies.
yes,
So there's no other
yes,
country in the world which is
yes.
sitting in our
So,
position. You're
some
absolutely right. I agree
s-
with you, sir.
yeah, some serious deterrence is needed. And thank you so much, Adi. And I'm
Sir,
sorry I
it's a
have to
pleasure.
really run now, but I
No,
hope
no,
I
no,
answered
not at
your
all.
questions.
This was a nice short little update. I will obviously try and disturb you once more because when Mr. Modi is in
Absolutely.
America, so that we
Yeah,
can get a little more ground perspective as to how he's being welcomed there, if I may. And a lot of politicians don't like that. But in any
yeah.
case, on that note, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I watch your channel very often. And I really love. As a matter of fact, I don't speak about politics, but I love your political shows, especially with Mr. Raj Gopalan. I keep watching those. Those are very interesting, and gives me quite an update about what's happening around the place. So thanks so much for the job that you do and the time that you've given me, sir. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Adi. Namaskar.